Welcome back to the National Mid Hockey Podcast. John Zella, James Nichols here with you again for another preseason episode. And I got to say, burning the roof of your mouth right before you're going to record a show in which you speak for an hour or so. not my favorite thing in the world. I'm dying right now.
Okay, I have two questions. One, do you keep like tonguing the top of your mouth now? Like you keep touching it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's going to be one of those things where it just lasts days and days because I'm just going to keep messing with it.
It's going to suck for you for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, minimum.
Condolences. 2, what'd you burn it on?
I made shakshuka.
I'm sorry. Bless you. Say it again.
Shakshuka. It's red pepper and onions with tomatoes, and you crack eggs on top and then put it in the oven with like cumin and paprika and stuff like that. It's a Middle Eastern dish. And I made fresh bread today, and I'm a man of many talents. I don't just mess up and say dumb shit on a podcast once a week. I also make mediocre food from scratch. My mediocre talents no bounds. I extend it wherever I can. But no, I have a bread maker, so it's super easy. I just over lunch just threw the ingredients in the little bread maker and made a nice loaf of bread, and then the shakshuka takes a few minutes. So it was worth it, but I am uncomfortable, we'll say.
Speaking of fresh baked bread, my wife found this farm nearby. Yes, not on Staten Island, but it's in Jersey, which is not very far.
Staten Island West.
That delivers raw milk and like fresh baked cookies and fresh baked bread, and like let me tell you, the sourdough they sent us,
forget
unreal.
Fresh sourdough,
real, nothing like it.
No, I can't disagree with that. That's definitely the right take. I love sourdough bread in general. Forget about fresh sourdough. Yeah, that's
sourdough. It might be the best bread ever. So,
it's right up there. If not one, it's 1A or something. I don't know what would go in its place. On the top of my head, I don't know. But that's.
Yeah, I mean, I love a good semolina. You know, the yellow Italian bread.
Yeah, I miss that. It's on my list of things to make at home.
Yeah, love me a nice semolina. Even just twist is incredible, but I don't know, man. Something about sourdough. It has so many, like, you could use it for so many things. Like, you just want to throw some butter on it? Sure, go ahead. You want to make a sandwich out of it? Yeah, you could do that too. So good.
All right. Top 3 breads. This is a great start to the show, by the way.
Great
top 3. No particular order.
Man, all right.
I think you just said it, but let's just get it on the record.
No, because you know why? I might surprise you. I think sourdough and semolina are on there. I'm going to remove the twist bread, although I do love it. I'm a big rye guy. Love rye bread.
I thought you were going to say pumpernickel for some reason, which is a different kind of rye as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
That's a good choice. Dark, or did you say dark or light rye?
Honestly, both are good. I don't really have a preference.
That's fair. That's the twist. You do a rye twist, and then you don't have. There's no compromise.
There you go.
You can just go right with it. I think I'm with you on the sourdough. I'm gonna throw in challah bread.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I mean, French toast. Forget it. That's an excellent one. It does make a really good grilled cheese as well.
Oh yeah,
like just unbelievable. I want to say honorable mention to focaccia, but the way that I make it is less bread and more pizza. Like it's just not the same.
That's okay.
I want to say something like a semolina, or maybe I'll just do ciabatta. I think that would be the other.
That's a good one.
That would be the third one in the mix there. Big carb guy, any shape.
Yeah,
Also honorable mention bagel, which isn't bread, but it isn't not bread.
the world may never know.
The world may never know. We're not going to decide that. There's a lot of things that we have to debate on
Yes.
the roster and some different things. But look at this segue, chef kiss.
Yeah.
Let's start with your appearance on DFO.
Oh,
For people that don't know what that means, go ahead and describe it, and then let's talk about your appearance on there.
yeah. Yeah. Obviously, I write for New Jersey Hockey Now, covering the New Jersey Devils, and um,
Boo.
Tyler, Tyler Yaremchuk, and Frank Saravalli reached out, asked if I wanted to hop on DFO Rundown to do a little preseason preview with them on the New Jersey Devils and why they are or are not Stanley Cup contenders, and had a lot of fun doing it. It was a good time. Those are two really uh, well respected people in the industry, and it was an honor to oblige.
And who did you say was ripping on the Islanders? Because you had a
Um,
story, you were going to say something, and then
yeah,
you didn't write it down purposely.
yeah. So alternatively, on the podcast that they released today, not the live show they did yesterday, they were talking about the Metropolitan Division, doing a preview and ripping on the Islanders. Pretty much what everyone says, right? How could they have gone unchanged? Um, the roster is the same as it was last year. They didn't win into the playoffs. They lucked into the playoffs was like their point. And how do you not make changes? Um,
The Engvall deal is getting some flack as well. The
yep,
7 years, even though the cost is low and the cap's going up, it's not.
yep.
I guess if you don't understand the Islanders roster, it's still a little questionable. I don't think that's a wrong take, but continue.
Yeah. So one of the points that they brought up though, um, was about Zach Parise, and they were talking about how, and I'm pretty sure that this is, not true. Maybe they just got it wrong on the episode, but they said that the Islanders didn't invite him back. But if I'm not mistaken, because the point of that was that how do you just let Zach Parise go? 21 goals last year. How do you let 21 goals go like that when you're a team that already struggles to score? Um, but I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, the story is that he was welcome back, and that's Lou's words. He's welcome back. He just has to decide if he wants to be, and that's the reason why he's not on the roster right now. He's still contemplating what he's going to be doing, despite opening night 5 nights away, 4 nights
It,
by the time you're hearing this. So
did did I see, or was it out there that he could come back mid-season? That could be a
yeah,
trade deadline acquisition type
yeah,
thing, depending on injuries and this and that and what cap accrual and
yeah. He's
um
he's a free agent. He can sign whenever. There's
yeah,
no limitation to that. So
it's interesting. That's and you can, I think I kind of ripped on some people, one particular article, and I like I said last episode, I like the writers that wrote that athletic preview article, and we kind of went back and forth. I think you eventually brought me over and convinced me that it wasn't that bad, but um a lot of times I'm listening to stuff, and I don't listen to that many other hockey podcasts anymore. Um, but just because I think I got a little burnt out on it. I'll probably pick it back up just because it's interesting, but um, and it informs me here. You can just tell when people aren't plugged in, and it's because it's really just not hard to know that. But the Islanders are just an afterthought most of the time. They're not exciting. They're a bubble team. They don't really know anything about them until it's the first round, and and then they go back to the tropes or the general talking points about the team, who they are defensively, and again, that even just proves they've evolved from that, and well, devolved because they had not been very good defensively. Um, Sorokin is the buoy. Like they're just not having the right conversation about the team. It doesn't surprise me. They've kind of always gotten it wrong. And if they're getting it right, they're dunking on the team because they're really bad. And then you have like Zenon Konopka standing up to TSN saying that like we're not the doormat and blah blah blah. Um, so it's interesting when stuff like that comes out. I'm not ripping anybody. It's hard to know about all 32 teams, but just ignore it. Just ignore the team. Like you're just gonna make people angry. It's kind of you're almost doing it on purpose as like clickbaity kind of stuff. You're not getting it wrong on purpose, but you didn't do your due diligence. It seems really easy to just get somebody on,
Yeah,
or Twitter search is free for now. Go do that.
sure.
Anything else in that show that stood out that they were ripping on the Islanders?
No, I mean that was that was really it. Gregor, brought up the point. He's like, listen, a full year of Horvat, might do them wonders, but you know, the general consensus was if they make the playoffs, it's only going to be because of how good Sorokin was, and that should lock him in for the Vezina. So their bottom line for the Islanders making the postseason was it has to be because Sorokin is having a Vezina caliber season. I don't know if I fully agree with that. Um, Again, those guys are great. I respect them. Love everything that they do. I'm a regular listener, and I read all their work. But I don't know if I necessarily agree that the Islanders are only going to make it if Sorokin plays to that level. Now, do I think that he won't? No, I think that he honestly he's my choice to win the Vezina this year. Um, but I do think that the Islanders, although they don't look too different, will be different. And we could
I
talk about that.
I think that's definitely the case. Looking at the roster from 30,000 feet or whatever, I think that's the right answer, the right viewpoint because yeah, it's a full year of Engvall and Horvat and a
Right.
healthy Barzal in that mix as well. And a lot of players really did have a good season. And you have Fashing who looks really good. Um, you have guys that are trying to get into the lineup,
Yeah.
the Goat Jays or whatever. Um, I think Romanov being back is good and healthy and having a full year of trying to figure out what that six defenseman core looks like and mixing and matching with the second and third pair. So yeah, and then you have Sorokin who's your ace. Every team we know hopes that they have a player, forget about a goalie that is that caliber. And yeah, I think maybe by the end of the episode we should talk about if we actually think they make the playoffs. And maybe we did that last time where they'd be I think we had said maybe the first or second wild card, most likely the first one. But um, yeah, so I do want to discuss the roster because we started our account started a little bit of a debate um, talking about who should be in the lineup and who shouldn't. But and we can start there. I had asked um, if Fashing and Goche make the roster, who should come out, Clutterbuck or Martin? And it was pretty down the middle. I saw a lot of good debate on that. Our new sister show, Through the Island, made a good point that Martin should come out because Clutterbuck kills penalties. Um, Other people had said that Clutterbuck is prone to get injured, and Martin plays a very specific role and has played well in that role. So he should be in it. Um, and that's to say that they both make it. That Fashing and Goche both make the roster. There's also Wahlstrom and Holmstrom to discuss. We'll get to that in a second. What do you make of that debate? Is it as simple as I kind of made it out to be, or is it a little more complicated?
Um, I'll put it to you this way. First of all, I think the point where Clutterbuck kills penalties is an excellent one. And the reason for that is just because he brings a little more than Martin, right? Physically, I'll say that, right? They're both gonna have upwards of however many hits by the end of the season, they'll be towards the top of the league if both stay healthy. Um, I think that Clutterbuck has a little more, or not a little. I think he has a lot more speed. I think he has a little bit more, and by a little bit I mean a lot more playmaking ability, better puck handling. I just think Clutterbuck's a better all around player. Now, I can't discount Martin's ability to come in clutch because he does that semi often. But overall, I think that Clutterbuck is just the better player. He offers more. And if anyone's going to come out, I think it would be or should be Matt Martin, because if you're trying to play a faster game, Clutterbuck's the faster player. So for me, I think Martin's the one who has to sit. Um, although I could hear the other side of the argument and understand, like, Martin brings other intangibles that maybe Clutterbuck doesn't. And I'm sure Clutterbuck does because he wears an A, right? So, if you're gonna say like, oh, he's a really good locker room guy, meaning Matt Martin, well, Clutterbuck wears an A for a reason. So, you know, I think he's just as good. So there's definitely an argument here, and it's a good one. But for me, I think I'm picking Clutterbuck over Martin.
Is a little bit of circumstance. And what I mean is, do they, if they need, if they're playing Toronto and they have Reeves and some guys that'll fight, that that if they're in the lineup, that you kind of put Martin in there. If you need a little bit more speed from your fourth line,
Yeah,
you put Clutterbuck in there. I would find it hard to believe actually that both won't be in the lineup. In other words, they both will be in the lineup most of the time. I don't know that I agree with that. I really think it should be one or the other. Fashing deserves full time. Gauthier deserves a full time look. I don't know that I would take him in and out. I think he's done really well in the preseason. He's coming with a lot of speed, and I think it's really worth it. And I think that the evolution of this question is kind of a couple other things, because there's Wahlstrom and Holmstrom too. What I find interesting, and let me know if you're also seeing it this way. It seems like the conversation is about both of them either being on the first line or not playing. That's how I'm reading it. Is that really the conversation, or did I miss something?
for Gauthier,
For Wahlstrom and Holmstrom.
for Wall. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the conversation because that's what they're trying in preseason. However, I think that they know what they have, right? Let's say in like Anders Lee playing the first line. So they're not gonna put him there in the preseason often because they're gonna say, okay, we have to see, did Wallstrom take that step that we're looking for? What's Holmstrom got? Can he be a player that can play in that role? We know what Anders Lee is gonna do. He's been there for a while. He's done that for a while. We know what that line is. So I think the reason why that conversation's happening is just because that's what you've been seeing. But I think they're just experimenting. Now, you know, are we going to talk about who it should be, Walsham, Holmstrom, or player X? Is that where you want to go with this?
Well, kind of. So my bigger question I think here is that, or rather, my point is, Lee skated with Barzal and Horvat, and it played well. That is probably the answer, so that you're not messing with that first line, because it doesn't seem that they're decided on Wahlstrom or Holmstrom, and
Yeah.
whether or not one or both of them are even going to be in the lineup. Because again, you still have a Fashing. Palmieri did come back. We'll talk about him later. Um, so there's a lot of moving parts here. So I think they're battling for a spot. I don't think it should be on the first line, because you need some consistency there. And it's easier to move around parts next to Pajot and Fashing than it is continuing to just rotate somebody on that first line. Lee is going to do a good job for you. Create some stability in your top six. You want to rotate your bottom six? Feel free to do that. The debate of is it between Gauthier, Clutterbuck, and Martin, really, because I think Fashing should be in the lineup every night. But if it's between those other three players, do whatever the hell you want.
Right.
Again, you have that other winger open on the third line. Do whatever. Hell, you're throwing Wahlstrom and Holmstrom in that list too. That's the kind of the crazy part. So there's Clutterbuck, Martin, Gauthier, 5 players. It raises another question about Parise in general, unless somebody gets hurt, where the hell he would have even fit in, or just closes the conversation. You don't go out and get Gauthier at all, but you still have Wahlstrom and Holmstrom to work out. Holmstrom can go to Bridgeport. That can eliminate somebody, but Wahlstrom would then need to step up. And my understanding is he has not done that. That they're not seeing kind of what we had hoped to see out of Wahlstrom, and that especially you were really high on him, and
Yeah.
coming off the injury, and he was talking a big game. Did he play against the Devils the other night? Did you see
He
him in
did. I
person?
saw it. I saw it firsthand. And it was something I was planning on talking about. So yeah. First, I'll start with the fact that a couple hours ago, I believe it was this morning, you know, Lambert was asked about what's the ideal player to play next to Horvat and Wahlstrom. And I'm just scrolling here.
Horvat and Barzal.
Sorry, yes, Horvat and Barzell. Um, and he said we need someone who's responsible defensively, but can add pace and make plays. And you want that to be Wahlstrom. However, unfortunately, and I was on the record who of as someone who was saying that I'm a believer in Wallstrom. He talked a big game and really seemed to have a whole new mentality and attitude about his mentality and what he's going to bring on the ice and everything like that. And unfortunately, and look, maybe he still needs to get acclimated. Maybe it's been a year and a half for him, or it's been a year for him, and he's like getting his feet under him still, but to me, he looked like a player who he was lost out there, you know, not in the right position at the right time, um, you know, both in the offensive zone and in the defensive zone and in the neutral zone. And, he wasn't really keeping pace with his line mates. And, that night he wound up skating on the third line with Carson Kuhlman and Ruslan Iskakov. But he was on the power play. And, he didn't really do too much to help score power play goals, which is another area of need for the Islanders this year. So, um,
Well, just
unfortunately for Walsham, he's just I don't know. I didn't see it then. I want to say maybe he needs a little bit more time to get back into game shape, but um, I haven't seen it yet.
my 2 cents is they don't have time to figure that out. You need someone that's just going to work with them, that can keep up, or at least know their specific role. Lee's role is, I mean, he could score 25 goals. He did it last season. He's scoring more than that, but he needs to be able to be in position offensively and defensively. And if Horvat and Barzal are going to continue to click like this, and you saw it in person, I do want to hear about that later. I bring up Wahlstrom specifically. I want to take that out of our note for later in the show. But if Horvat and Barzal are going to click like this, you need somebody to just go.
Yeah.
It cannot be a question. And that eliminates, and I think I even started over the summer saying, I just put Lee there. He's going to work. You're not going to have to question it. Deal with the rest of your roster. You have a lot of other questions that you need to kind of figure out. And that was before they had brought other players in. And now they're at the point where it looks like that's what's going to wind up happening. That's obvious to me. The Islanders have done weird shit for some reason. Lambert has done that. Trotz did it here and there too. You go with what you know, and make sure that it's a complement to what's clicking and working. That to me is obvious, but who knows? I think the other thing that's really important is that we did see Palmieri? Did he skate in the Devils game, or was that the day after?
No,
It was
that was the following.
so it was the following day or game. Sigh of relief, huh? It
Yeah,
makes things a
that
little more complicated, but it's a sigh of relief.
yeah, that definitely helps. You have that second line back together now with Engvall, Nelson, and Palmieri. Who, by the way, I'll also say I saw Engvall live. Looked really good. Looked really strong. Played with good pace. Good playmaking in his own end. He forced a couple turnovers to bring play the other way. One of them turned into a breakaway goal. Really good shot too. Fake, he faked like a slap shot and then went 5-hole real quick on Kira Schmid. So he looked great. But my concern with Palmieri is that he was injured a bunch last year, and yes, he also had a child, so that was part of the reason why he was out when he was. But I'm a little concerned about his ability to stay healthy from this point on. He wasn't able to do it last year. This year already he's been out, for the first couple weeks of training camp. I don't know what the problem is. I have a suspicion it's some sort of concussion issue if he had one. Um, at his age, on the other side of 30, slowing down a little bit, if he can't stay healthy, the Islanders have a problem there because who's going to fill that spot, right? And yes, Gautier's on the roster, Fashing's on the roster. They have
Fashing did look good next to Engvall and Nelson.
yes. Is he going to have the same scoring pedigree as Palmieri? Probably not. So, although he probably looked good, I'm not discounting that. It's just not the same player, not in the top six at least. So, there's a bit of a problem there. Um, I
It could
know,
be
I know,
Wahlstrom. No,
could be. If it clicks for him and he plays better, could be. Ideally, though, you want Wahlstrom working his way up to the top line if that's going to happen. So, we'll see on that front. But for now, yes, definitely a sigh of relief that Kyle Palmieri is back in the lineup because that trio just works so well together.
yeah,
Your
and
point is well
it's
stated. That Fashing looked good there too. But again, he's not going to score 20-25 goals like Palmieri can.
could that be why Lamoriello brought in, knowing that there may have been an issue and some health concerns for Palmieri over the summer? Could that have been why Gautier's brought in? Holmstrom's sticking around. Wahlstrom's getting a shot here and there, and they're trying to figure out where he can fit in. It does give the roster a lot of depth if Palmieri is healthy and is in the
Yeah.
lineup every day. It gives. We'll say this so we're blue in the face. I don't understand where this leaves Ross Johnson. If you especially if you're not, and I don't actually think it's going to happen, but if by some grace of God, Martin and Clutterbuck are both not in the lineup at the same time, then you're really not. I really don't know what Johnson is doing. Because if you're like, I don't know, understand how all that's working. Um, you have a gluttony of these players that you just simply don't need anymore on a regular
Yeah.
basis. And if you're gonna, and I think a good idea actually is a reason why not to have Clutterbuck and Martin in the lineup every day is because when a good time to have them really healthy if they are gonna stay healthy this season, have them in the playoffs. See who's really working. That line is gonna get it done in the playoffs. I'm not worried about that. They just have to get there and do it comfortably, and then be healthy enough for the playoffs. So if there's a reason to kind of, all right, they're getting older, it's the last season, let's make sure they can just get through it. But having said that, it could be why, Palmieri's injury could have been why, they're going around the edges. I don't know that I don't know what you could do unless he's on LTIR and he's going to be there for a long time because it's a
Yeah.
healthy $6 million, $5 or $6 million, $5 million. You're just going to find that money if he comes back early. And you don't want him out because he was good on that line.
Yeah.
So it puts him in a tough spot. So that's probably why Lamoriello was kind of taking some bites around the edges and trying to find who's going to work and Goche or whatever, just to kind of round out the roster. So it's interesting that that Palmieri's back, and we'll see. Hopefully, he is really healthy. Saw some comments after one of Sorokin's games. He had a tough go, and fans really just jumped on him about it, especially in the preseason. It seems weird to do. Any worry from your end? He's your Vezina candidate. Couple games here and there, some periods, not even consistent play at this point in games. Any worry there? It seems like just bullshit chatter to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's bullshit chatter. You know, the Devils are 6-0 in the playoffs. I mean, in the post preseason. I'm taking no stock in that. Like, yeah, they were an incredible team last year. They're 6-0 now. They project to be really good, but they could come out of the gate and stumble in the first 5 games. You know, it's the preseason is purely experimental. You play these different combinations, you play different styles, you test out what works, what doesn't work, you know, and same goes for goaltenders, you know, different movements in the crease, you know, different ways to get, you know, from post to post, different, you know, positioning and stances. So it's not at all a worry for me. No red flags over here. I think that once the season comes, you know, the lineups will be locked in, the system will be locked in, the players will be locked in, um, and they'll be good to go. Natsman Hockey Podcast is brought to you by DraftKings. We're back with another week of football, and DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on all the NFL action with great offers every single game day. New customers can bet just $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Just throw 5 down on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away an instant winner. DraftKings isn't stopping there either. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Football's more fun when you're in on the action, so download the app now and sign up with code THPN. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPE New York 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
I do want to make mention, because it was a conversation over the summer, talk about roster debates of, Barzal on the wing. And I think we knew last week, but we certainly know now,
Yeah.
he's on the wing. That's where he's been all preseason. There's really no debate about it. The former Islander writer and Arthur Staple, who's been a guest on our show, he's really great, discussing Barzal on the wing, and that's what the coaches told him, and that's what Lamoriello needs out of him, and he's comfortable, and him and Horvat are obviously playing really well. Is it just another arrow in Lambert's quiver at this point to be able to have him play center, or is it just kid get used to it and this is just the way that it is, play well. We got you somebody to skate with that can really skate at a high level, kind of ride or die.
I think, well, first of all, Barzal is another player I saw live a couple nights ago. When I tell you, and I think this is a Twitter account on, obviously Twitter, Tank Barzal, right? That's like a person. This is Tank Barzal. I mean, the way I saw him, like, he always was very good at handling, managing the puck, skating it in transition. He had all those things in his game down. The thing that is standing out to me, and I think it's standing out to everyone right now, is he's shooting, and he's shooting a lot. That's going to only benefit the Islanders. Obviously, you and I had multiple conversations in the past about how he passes up on opportunities, both figuratively and literally. Um, but now, or at least in the preseason, and again, I know I just said that I don't take too much stock in the preseason. However, when it comes to decision making, I think that that's a little bit different, right? You're seeing that his mentality in certain situations is shoot first. This is a good area for me to score, right? Whereas in the past, it might have been this is a good area for me to make a play, and then it goes broken. That's not what's happening.
And there was no one really to give that opportunity to. So I think he was passing to players who couldn't finish his idea. Like he just didn't have anyone with the same IQ that and ability that he had. So he was passing up on opportunities, and it was almost twice as bad because there wasn't even a chance for it to get finished the way that he envisioned.
Right. And now, the biggest difference here for me too is, last preseason he didn't start on the wing. He started as a center. So the change in his position on the ice, might be making him shoot more by default. So he's look, we don't often talk about his shot and how good it is because we know that he's a distributor, he's a playmaker. He's got an excellent shot. He is, he cut the hair. He looks more, hardcore now. Like if that is, a good fit, good term for it. Um, I think that he's got a big year ahead of him, especially skating next to Bo Horvat. I think those two as a duo are a really good fit for each other. Because again, if Barzal is going to shoot more and put the puck in the back of the net, that's great. However, he can also dish it to Bo Horvat, who knows how to finish himself. So, um,
And that's what I
to
saw in
me,
these replays. And or
yeah,
in the bits and pieces of the game that I was actually able to watch live,
yeah,
their ability to find one another and be creative,
yeah,
it seems really, really natural. And
it
then on
does.
top of that, Barzell seems just he's got to jump, and on the wing you have a little more freedom, especially in the offensive zone. And um, he broke up a play at the point and got a breakaway, and he scored. And the puck was fluttering. It wasn't flat. And just to quote Butch Goring, he just made no mistake.
Yeah,
And those are the opportunities he's gonna be. He's gonna be Michael Grabner out there. He's gonna be able to break up plays to point or spring ahead into the neutral zone once the Islanders get possession, and he's really gonna be able to truly push the pace. And I like that's what I saw, right? He didn't get the puck and even think about curling back the other way to set up. He just went for it. And I need that. We need to see that. The Islanders need to see that. He needs to be more north south. Once you get the puck in the zone, fine. Do your thing. But it's time to be creative, find space, give and go, whatever. But in your own zone, in the neutral zone, he can push the pace and control the tempo like few
yeah,
other players can. And that's what I saw out of that. He just saw the opening and took it. That's the player that hungry. He's taking advantage
yeah.
of players that are flat footed. He does look different. He looks more confident. He's got a
He
spring in his
does.
step. I think some of that is you have a good partner. You have someone that can ride
Yes,
shotgun with you,
yes,
and you have less responsibility. And that's something that I've
absolutely.
said I think was weighing someone like Wahlstrom down in his development. He was just being tasked with top 6 minutes in general, on top of everything else, and playing with Barzal and being pressured score. You're playing against better opponents. It just wasn't the right fit.
Yeah,
And you see what happens with a good player, even like Barzell, with just a little change like this. It's going to go a long way. It seems,
yeah,
in hindsight, it almost seems like, oh, we were looking, and maybe we even had this conversation. It doesn't seem crazy. And maybe other people had too, but, maybe we weren't looking for a winger at all. We were looking for a center the whole time. And here we are with Horvat, and that makes a ton of sense. And again, hindsight's 2020, but to me now, it would have opened up a lot of doors, at least for conversations to ask who could come in and ride with Barzal. And yeah, no, this makes a ton of sense. So more broadly, the Islanders, I think it was a pretty good roster for them against the Devils on Monday. I don't think it was anything close to what we'll see opening night, but
Yeah, I have it
um,
right in front of me. Actually, it was Lee Horvat, Barzell, Engvall, Nelson, Dufour, Iskakov, Kuhlman, Wahlstrom, Martin, Cizikas, Gauthier, Odelius, Pulak, Romanov, Hutton, Aho, Mayfield, Sorokin, and
so 70% maybe we'll call it the roster. And um, I think Gauthier brings a lot of what Clutterbuck brings. So that fourth line's pretty much intact. Wahlstrom is pretty much an everyday NHLer last season, barring the injuries, of course, in the last couple seasons. Um, let's go positives first from the game for the Islanders. It was a little bit of a barn burner, right? Did it end 6-5?
yes.
Um, just wild because I remember the Islanders being up 2-0 or maybe 3-1. And then I stopped watching, and then all of a sudden I looked the next morning. I was like, was there another game? It's like sometimes they do split
Split
squad. Like,
Scott, yeah.
yeah, did I not understand what happened? That's a different one of the two games. No, no, that was the one game.
That was it.
Let's go. Let's start with the positives. What did you see from the Islanders that you really liked? You can reiterate Barzell and Horvat if you'd like, or
Yeah.
Lee or whatever. What did you see that you liked, and then some things that kind of leaving you scratching your head? And that could be Wahlstrom as well.
Yeah, well, I'll start with what I liked, and again, that was one of those things was Barzell. The thing, and I was going to bring this up before. The best thing about the Barzell Horvat duo for me is that the ability or adding the shooting into his repertoire for Barzell does so much in the sense that if he's going to shoot the puck, his shot's good enough that he could score. Wouldn't surprise me to see him score, maybe closer to 25 this year. However, now defenders are no longer going to anticipate that pass, or they shouldn't anticipate that pass anymore. Now they're going to push up on him and try to prevent that pass, which is naturally going to open up a passing lane. So he has, and as good of a distributor he is, he now has options. And next to him on his line is going to be two finishers if it's Anders Lee and Bo Horvat. So it's going to create a lot more opportunities for him as a first liner. So
And
that's
give
what
and
I
go. So he
and give
can
and go. Yeah.
I think he can get the puck back, and that's where he needs to leverage his speed. All right,
Yeah.
so they're pushing up on you as you said, and putting some pressure so that you have to distribute, but then you can outskate most defensemen.
Yeah.
Use that speed and get the puck back. That's a conversation I say all the time. I'm especially Horvat. It's interesting. Barzell and Horvat kind of do both things really well. They're great passers and they're great shooters. And I think that's a really good combination because they can just kind of pick their spots.
Yeah.
Unlike, obviously I'm not comparing myself to an NHLer, but when I play and there's players that I know have a better shot than me, I always tell them, just give me the puck, I'll give it back. I'm not going to shoot. That's not how I play. I don't have a great shot and I'd rather pass the puck and I can find the opening. So, but the fact that they have both skill sets and they're both super good at it, like at an elite or borderline elite level, yeah, I think that's a great point. They defenders should adjust, and if they do, it doesn't mean that he can't also shoot. It's just not the initial shot. So he needs to be able to kind of fade it, um, fade the shot, pass, and then get it back, or Horvat can just score, or Lee can get a rebound, or whatever the case is.
Yeah. And the other thing that I liked too was that looking at the score sheet here, all of the regulars got on the board. 3 points for Barzell, 2 points for Engvall, Nelson, Lee, Aho, Mayfield, Horvat, Pollock, all got on the board. Everyone chipped in. 5 goals, which is a lot for the Islanders. Found different ways to score. All at 5-on-5. The power play wasn't uh too great. 0 for 2, not many opportunities, but nonetheless, you know, Lee scores, Barzal scores twice, Engvall scores. Like these are the guys that you want to see on the score sheet. Um, on the negative side of it, we talked about Wahlstrom. I think he looks a little lost. Maybe he just needs some time to get acclimated. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's see how tonight goes. He's playing right now. I don't know what his deployment is at this moment. We could look that up, but um, he needs to be better. The other thing too that I noticed for the Islanders and their pipeline, William DeFore did not look good in that game. Ruslan Iskakov did not look good in that game. Kalo Delius wasn't too bad. Um, he definitely has some more development or necessary development that he needs, but um, I was a little pleasantly surprised by his game next to Ryan Pulock. It was a good game. But Sorokin didn't have a great game that game. Again, no red flags for me yet. He could have been a little sharper. He wasn't, but the major takeaways for me were, guys like DeFore, Iskakov. You can even throw Wahlstrom in there. Needed to be better. Um, the NHL pace, I think, just eluded them. And you know what? I should mention Gauthier had a really strong game. I think I liked what I saw from him.
It's a little, I mean, Fashing light. It's just it's somebody that Fashing's been in the system and on the team, and um, fits in really really well, and that's kind of what I'm seeing. It's a really good bottom six edition for me. Did you say that Bolduc was in the lineup?
No,
No.
no, he wasn't.
Have you just a quick thing just as I'm thinking about it? Um, have you seen or heard much about I didn't realize that maybe this was as much of a conversation as it was, but kind of Aho and Bolduc, and surprisingly or unsurprisingly not Robin Salo, battling for that sixth spot. Um, any insight into maybe who might be kind of edging another player out for that sixth position?
Yeah, it looks like they're going back to Aho. Um, Again, that's not definite, just from what I've been reading and seeing word of mouth. I don't think they've been particularly impressed with Bolduc this in the preseason. So maybe Bolduc gets 70 minutes. They certainly can use Grant Hutton, who changed his number, by the way. He's wearing 33. That was very weird for me to see. Um,
Last worn by
Zdeno Chara.
Chara. Very
Uh,
weird.
yeah, but yeah, I don't think they've been particularly impressed with Bolduc in his preseason. I know that he took a penalty tonight that Andrew Gross was just like that's just something you can't do in regards to whatever he did. I didn't see the play, but I
Yeah, I
don't
did see
think
him in the box. I was walking by the TV upstairs and I saw him in the box, but I didn't see the play.
yeah, I don't think that they're particularly pleased with how his preseason has gone. So, and again, for a guy like Bolduc, it matters because you're trying to play your way onto the roster, whereas Sorokin and his preseason is different. He's going to be the starting goaltender for the Islanders this year, and he'll be fine. He'll get into his groove. That's not a given for a guy like Bolduc, and he needs to show better uh in in the preseason, and he hasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Aho's also been around and, mistakes in here, and Romanov was kind of the same way. Obviously, they traded for him and gave up quite a bit, but he wasn't solid the entire last season either, injuries notwithstanding. So it's interesting. I think they must be going with 7D, and maybe they'll play the game and yo-yo some guys back and forth. If they can go through waivers or not be waiver eligible, if they're home and it's really easy to get somebody back up, maybe they save a couple bucks on the cap. But depending on what the needs are. I'm really interested in what the final roster is going to be, because they might be at risk of losing some players. I really don't think anyone's going to take Johnson at $1 million, or even Clutterbuck for that matter, or whatever you actually have to do to get everything straightened out on the cap. I'm not really worried about any of the players that the Islanders might potentially quote lose. But another thing, was Koivula anywhere near any of these games?
No,
Didn't even not in, wow, incredible. I know this is like a
he
little late, and I'm just kind of going through stuff. I didn't hear boo about Koivula
yeah,
at all.
I don't see him on the preseason roster sheet at all. We got Timashov here, Lucas is here.
Timashov was an interesting one because
Yeah,
he's not even a non-roster player. Was he a PTO?
I think he was an AHL signing.
Oh, okay, because he's not even on the non-roster for on Cat Friendly. And another player that kind of just he was buzzing around in early in the season. It was one of our first episodes back, and Durando just disappeared,
Yeah,
not in the conversation, and surprising because he's another, and he's an RFA after this season, and along with a number of other players, but um, also Holmstrom, Ishkakov, also RFAs after this season. Making some noise, but could have been in that conversation. I think it's good. It's good competition. Getting some of these players, they're all kind of around the same age, 22, 24 kind of thing. So they're about to hit their peak. If they're going to make it, it's going to be soon. Dufour, is 21. He's really the outsider there. But all these other players are kind of in that 22, 24 range. They're going to make it. It's going to be soon. And if they're not, we're going to know.
yeah,
And so far they haven't. Holmstrom may be the chief among them of just not being able to take that step and being really close time and time again. I really don't want to put Wahlstrom in that conversation. He's still also, well, he's 23. He's an RFA again after the season. He signed a 1-year deal. But there's a certain point where you got to figure it out. I mean, look at Beauvillier.
right.
Did some great stuff for the team, but at a certain point, you have to figure out what you actually need on the team, and is that player going to fit the role that you have in mind for them and that you expect them to fill, and kind of figure out what you're going to do from there. It's crazy. There's a lot of just, it seems, potential in the wings for the Islanders, and I think that's kind of why a lot of the prospect rankings have them very low, is because there's a lot of question marks, because they have guys that should by now have made the roster and they just haven't. Even in a third line role, they're not comfortable saying, nope, Holmstrom or Wahlstrom, you have that third line for sure. It's locked up.
Yeah,
Instead, they bring in guys like Kuhlman and Gauthier and kind of these guys around the edges, and find a guy like Fashing who really fits in and is fantastic. And they bring in a guy like Engvall, and they just don't have the players that they see are actually going to step up in the short term and fight for a spot like a lot of other teams have. They've had these players come out of nowhere, and they're 23 and they make a huge difference in the playoffs or in the regular season or whatever the case is. The Islanders have just not had that type of luck. It's always been, oh my God, did you believe Parise scored 20 goals? Oh my God, where's this Fashion guy come from? Oh wow, Suzuki scored 20 goals. Couldn't you believe the year that Martin had? It's very rarely, beyond Brock Nelson, that you can kind of, and Barzal and Sorokin, that okay, this is what's expected. So it's disappointing again to see less and less players not only get the opportunity but take the opportunity.
yeah.
That's really what it is. I think they're given the opportunity, and the Islanders are strict, but they've not seized it. No one has kind of stepped up and came into camp and said, I'm going to make you waive a player. And
Except for Gauthier.
I think he fits in somehow on the main roster. I again, I don't know how you keep Johnson. I don't understand how that's going to work. Just waive him. Just waive him. You can bury a million, a little more than a million. Who cares? What are you doing?
Yeah.
At least let him play. He just sits out of six. What? How many games did he play last year? I think you told me last time 16,
Yeah, I think that was
something
it.
like. Wow, just let him go play and make his money. Just have
Yep.
him sit around. That must be a miserable existence. And then when you do get called in, it's because A, a bunch of players got hurt, or B, because you're just getting your face punched in.
Yep.
Now, he's a really tough dude, but he's still gonna get punched. That's tough, man. He's like the last, I don't want to say goon, but he's the last of that breed for sure. Ryan Reeves is almost in that category as well. He's certainly not an everyday player, but are there 5 of them left in the league at this point? Of course, the Islanders have to have him and take up the cap space and roster space. It's unbelievable.
Right.
So we have to sit here and talk about how they need to waive another player that's not Ross Johnston, and potentially lose them because they've proven to be good. Crazy. Crazy to me.
It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of days. I know it's so hard because I think they put themselves in a bind, and they meaning Lou, but the Islanders they owe $486,625 to the cap.
It's really just Kuhlman. I mean, you send him down or whatever the case is. That's 23 players. That includes Ross Johnston, I think. Wahlstrom, not
Yeah,
Holmstrom. And that's
yeah,
it. I mean, you pretty much figure it out from there.
but looking at who went on waivers today, a guy like Alex Nylander went on waivers today. Tomorrow there's going to be a bunch of cuts from other NHL teams. Like, there's some pretty good guys going on waivers who certainly could help. And, I'd be interested to see if they try and claim anybody because, you know, if it's not working out with a guy like Holmstrom, if it's not working out with a guy, you know, that you want to put in that top six or help fill out the roster, there's going to be pretty serviceable NHLers going on waivers. I know for a fact that, well, I shouldn't say that. I should say I have a feeling that there is going to be one of two players that the Devils are going to be waiving in either Tice Thompson or Nolan Foote, who are probably both ready for the NHL, but there's just no room on the roster. They're both playing pretty well in training camp, but there's not a spot on the team. And both of them require waivers. One of them might have to go down because there's no room, and I could see someone trying to scoop up one of those players, or maybe both if they for some reason both hit waivers. So if I'm the Islanders and I see Nolan Foote on waivers, I would take a look at that. A young player with a heavy shot and physicality, he kind of actually fits the system. I don't know, man. Like, you can potentially grab a bargain. Alex Nylander played really well for Pittsburgh in the preseason and showed a little bit of finesse last year. Snag him. Why not? What does he make against, you know, Pittsburgh's cap? Let's see. He makes a grand total of $775,000. So, again, you could find these bargains that you might be able to plug and play with on the waiver wire, especially over the next couple of days. There might also be so many players going on waivers that you can snag somebody
It
potentially.
also allows you to sneak somebody on waivers yourself because there are
Yeah,
going to be so many players, and a lot of teams are trying to shed salary as they get ready for opening week. Um, it's an interesting point. I mean, and again, you're still looking for some fringe players, and I guess that's why Lamoriello scooped up some players that he thought, all right, if my guys don't make it, at least we have somebody. Obviously, Fashion's already on the roster, but Gauthier, maybe Kuhlman or whatever, maybe some of these young guys can step up. He may have just been banking on something, knowing that there weren't that many spots anyway. You're looking at one. If the fourth line's staying intact, you're looking at one spot, and you have 3 players, 4 players for the one spot. That's not a bad position. I think it's a matter at that point you have to look at what do you think the quality of those players are, and you have to kind of compare. Okay, what do I think now, having seen some of these players skate, and what did I think a month ago before everything started? Right, because Lamoriello operated under the ladder, which was
Yeah.
I think these players could work, and that's before you see anything. Now you can say, yeah, I probably wouldn't have done that. Now, knowing what I know now, and he may be thinking the same thing. But your point is interesting. In the past, I think we would have been kind of itching for that and expecting it. I also don't exactly know where the Islanders fall on the waiver wire, just because they did make the playoffs. So I don't know where. I think they're kind of in the mushy middle anyway. Um, but some of those other teams that definitely have the space that don't need to do too much. Thinking of the Ducks and the Coyotes and some of these other teams that need players, um,
Yeah.
but have the room, and it's not a bad way in this day and age. And one of the last years of a really big cap crunch before it goes up, um, which we'll talk about in a second, to kind of grab some players on the cheap and figure it out. So we'll we'll see. Well, I mean, we'll certainly know more. I'm looking at the waiver tweets every morning, or every day at noon, and I'm not seeing any Islanders on there, and I just kind of keep waiting. They don't need to do a whole bunch, but they need to do something, and it'll be interesting to see if anyone if the Islanders claim anybody. But I guess we won't know for for a couple more days because it's a little delayed. Looking ahead, salary cap looks like it's going to go up $4 or $5 million next summer,
Yeah.
and it starts making some contracts look a little bit better, smaller percentage of the cap moving forward. Um, could be some overhaul for the Islanders, considering there's a number of UFAs. Um, really just 2 main ones in Clutterbuck and Martin. It could be a little bit of an overhaul. No one has a new contract kicking in, best I can tell, except for Sorokin. So that $4 million gets sucked up pretty quick. But other than that, there's it could mean some other moves around the edges if Wahlstrom doesn't prove that, which is tough because you almost hope that you can leverage him in a trade, that he plays well and you trade him and do something else and get a defenseman or kind of bolster the third pair or something. But right now it's not worth anything. You can't package him just to get rid of him, and he's an RFA, so he can demand all he wants. He knows he's not worth his weight in pine soil at this point. So you need to figure out. He needs to figure out what the hell's going on for himself. But it's potential that if he does have a really good season, it'll be a little more expensive. He is an RFA. What do you think? Is it possible that the Islanders can further evolve, make some more changes after the season, or does the Sorokin deal kind of takes the wind out of the sails of any increase in the salary cap?
Really depends on, how this season goes. Looking ahead, so the projected salary cap is going up to, for argument's sake, 87 and a half. That would give the Islanders about just under $5 million in cap space, right? If it goes up to 88, like Gary Bettman said could happen potentially, they're closer to $6 million instead of five in cap space, right? Well, after this season, who's a free agent? Clutterbuck, Martin, Wahlstrom, and Kuhlman, and Sebastian Aho. If all is a disaster this season, all of those players are gone. They're not coming back. If not, and let's say for argument's sake, Wahlstrom pops off this year, he's going to be due for some sort of, maybe a bridge deal, right? Maybe something that'll walk him into age 26, um, you know, leading up to UFA. Reasonable to believe that, right? Um, as for everybody else, I could see a situation where this is it for them. and they don't bring back Matt Martin, they don't bring back Cal Clutterbuck. But even after that, you know, in 2 summers, you're looking at Brock Nelson. He's going to be due for a new contract. Uh, he'll be 33. He's probably going to be on the downswing of his career. So, how much do you want to commit to him? Where's the team at? We'll see, what the cap looks like then. But, Palmieri's a UFA. I think at that point they can, part ways with him. On the blue line, you have Noah Dobson and Alexander Romanov. So your major free agents in 2 summers is Nelson, Dobson, and Romanov, right? You need to be very calculated between now and 2 summers from now in order to make sure that you're not continuing to bury yourself in salary cap hell. Because Barzal's making 9.15 for the next 8 years. Well, Horvat's making 8.5 for the next 8 years. Pollock and Pellick are making almost 6 million plus for the next 7 years, and Sorokin's making 8.25 for the next 8 years. After he's making 4 million this year, 8.25 for the next 8 years. So for the next 9 years, he's going to be in the crease. You got to be really calculated. It's great that it's going up. They're going to, gain an extra 4 or 5 million bucks. However, the rest of the NHL is getting just as much. So they're going to need to be calculated and try and do their best to get the hell out of this salary cap hell.
I agree. I don't have a whole lot to add there. There's only a few years left. Like you said, Nelson, I'd throw Lee in that conversation as well. Palmieri's got 2 years left. And a player to add to your list is Engvall's there for some time as well.
Yeah,
it's
true.
not nearly as much money, but they do have some players. Cizikas as well for this season and 3 more. So it's interesting. There could be some turnover. Peugeot still this year and 2 more years at $5 million. It'll be interesting to see what Lamoriello can do to maneuver this in a positive way. He's made some questionable signings, and I'm hoping players like Engvall kind of work out. Palmieri for the most part has at what his 4 or 5 year deal that he had. We'll see. I think there's still a lot of young players that can come up and really make a difference, and you kind of just let some of these veterans go and ride into the sunset. You could also leverage them if they're playing well and really worth it to some other teams. But they have potential to kind of do something, but we'll see what they're actually able to do. And I'm really hoping that's in a really long time from now so that we can enjoy a nice long season from the Islanders, which feels like a really natural end to this conversation. Please rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at Nesman Hockey. Sorry, we're not active so much on Instagram or Threads. Facebook too. Really just the meta stuff. It seems we're not very active. Every once in a while I get a bug and I'll post everywhere, but Twitter's our main place. Obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you very much. You're already here. If you like watching the show and you haven't yet, go check us out over there. You can find James' work at New Jersey Hockey Now and The Fourth Period. And James, bring us home.
Till next time, all. Let's go Islanders.